It was supposed to be a one-night favor, just a friend helping another friend out. No big deal. I mean, when Jordan texted me at 11:42 p.m., "Hey, can I crash at your place tonight?" Long story. I didn't hesitate. We'd been friends for a few years, ever since we worked on the same set for a short film back in college. I was the guy who handled sound. He was the actor with the killer smile and unfairly good hair. We'd kept in touch, shared memes, occasional beers, group hangs, but it had never been anything more. I always kind of assumed Jordan was straight. Not that it mattered. I wasn't looking for anything. Still, there was something about the way he looked at me sometimes. Something I never had the courage to read too much into. I texted back, "Door's open. Couch is yours." What I didn't expect was him showing up half an hour later, soaked from the rain and holding a ripped duffel bag, his shirt clinging to him like a second skin. His hair was plastered to his forehead, his jeans sticking to his legs. He looked wrecked. "Dude," I said, stepping aside, "you okay?" "Yeah," he muttered, brushing past me. "Just needed to get out of there." Out of where, he didn't say. I gave him a towel, dry clothes, even offered him the bed if he wanted it. He declined, of course. Jordan was the type to keep things casual, even when something was clearly going on. So we sat on the couch, each with a beer, listening to the rain hammering the windows. We didn't talk much. He didn't offer details, and I didn't push. But every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me, really looking. Not the way he usually did, when we joked around or quoted movies. This was different. He seemed unsure, like he was trying to figure something out in his head. Around 2 a.m., I got up and stretched. "All right, man, I'm calling it." Jordan nodded, still staring at the dark TV screen. "Thanks for letting me crash." "Of course." I started to walk toward my room when he said, "Wait, you mind if I sleep in there? With you?" I stopped, turned around slowly. "In the bed?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, I know it's weird. I just don't really want to be alone tonight." There was something in his voice. Not fear exactly, but vulnerability. Like he was tired of pretending everything was fine. So I nodded. "Sure, yeah, come on." We didn't touch. Not at first. We lay there like two statues, backs turned, both pretending to fall asleep. The only sound was the rain and the occasional rumble of distant thunder. I could feel the tension between us like a charged wire. Then, just when I thought he was asleep, I felt the mattress shift. Jordan turned toward me, slow and deliberate. "You awake?" he whispered. I hesitated. "Yeah." He was quiet for a second. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. What would you do," he said, his voice barely audible, "if your whole world didn't make sense anymore? Like, if everything you thought about yourself started to feel like a lie?" I turned toward him. Even in the dark, I could make out the shape of his face. "I think I'd try to figure out what's true. What still feels real." His breath hitched slightly. "What if that truth scared the hell out of you? Then I'd probably stop trying to figure it out alone." That's when his hand found mine, tentative and unsure, but real. And everything changed. I didn't move at first. His hand in mine was light, hesitant, like he was testing the weight of the moment, waiting to see if I'd pull away. I didn't. I gave his fingers a light squeeze, just enough to say, "I'm here." No pressure, no rush, just here. Jordan let out the smallest breath, like he'd been holding it all night. "I'm sorry if this is weird," he murmured. "It's not." I said, "Well, it is, but not in a bad way." He let out a soft laugh. "That makes no sense." "Exactly," I replied, smiling, even though he couldn't see it in the dark. We lay there, still and quiet, his hand still in mine. The silence didn't feel awkward now. It felt charged, like a string pulled taut between us. Every breath felt louder, every movement more noticeable. I could feel the heat of his body across the gap between us, even though we still weren't touching anywhere else. I didn't know who else to call, he admitted after a long pause. "I was with someone, but it went bad. Like, Really bad. I didn't push for details. You don't have to explain. I want to, he said, but not tonight. Okay. He was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, you ever wish something was different, and then when it finally is different, it scares the shit out of you? I thought about it. Yeah, all the time. Jordan shifted closer. Just a little. Enough that his knees brushed mine under the blanket. I think I've been pretending for so long, he whispered, that I forgot what it feels like to actually want something. And not fake it. That's when I felt his forehead press lightly against my shoulder. He didn't say anything else. Just rested there. It wasn't sexual. It wasn't a move. It was quiet and intimate in a way that made my throat tighten. I stayed like that, perfectly still, listening to his breathing even out until I was sure he'd fallen asleep. But I didn't sleep. I stayed awake thinking about everything that had just happened. His hand in mine, the way he talked like he'd been carrying this weight for years. And most of all, the unspoken thing between us. The thing neither of us had named yet. In the morning, when the light began to filter through the blinds, I felt him stir beside me. He stretched, yawned softly, then went still. I could almost feel him realizing where he was, what he'd done, the way his body tensed slightly beside mine. I turned my head toward him. Hey! His eyes met mine, uncertain and unreadable. You okay? I asked. Jordan nodded, slowly. Yeah. Just feels weird waking up like this. Regret? Weird? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. No, he said quickly. No, not that. His eyes searched mine for a long beat. Just new. I nodded. Okay. He sat up, running a hand through his hair. I should probably shower. Do you still have that awful coconut shampoo? I upgraded, I said with a smirk. Vanilla almond. I'm classy now. That made him laugh, and something in my chest unclenched. He stood, stretched, and gave me a half smile before heading toward the bathroom. I watched him go, the soft click of the door closing behind him echoing in the quiet room. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a one-night thing anymore. Something had shifted, and I had no idea where it was going. But I knew I wanted to find out. The apartment smelled like coffee and rain when I got out of bed. Jordan was already in the kitchen, hair still damp from the shower, wearing one of my hoodies that hung loose on him. He looked up when I walked in, gave me a small, tired smile. Hope you don't mind, he said, holding up the mug. I needed caffeine. Would have been suspicious if you didn't, I said, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Feel any better? He nodded. Yeah, I think I needed to not be where I was last night. I leaned against the counter, watching him as he sipped from the mug. Something about the way he stood there. Barefoot, hoodie sleeves pushed halfway up his forearms, completely at home in my kitchen, felt surreal. Like we'd skipped a bunch of steps and landed in the middle of something neither of us had defined yet. We didn't talk about the night before. Not right away. We danced around it, making breakfast, joking about the shitty toaster that burned every other slice, pretending like nothing had changed. But it had. You could feel it in the space between us. At one point, as I was rinsing off the dishes, Jordan stepped in behind me. Not close enough to touch, but enough to feel him there. Can I ask you something kind of personal? I turned off the water and looked at him. Sure. When did you know? He asked. Know what? That you were into guys. I took a breath. Honestly, I think I always knew, but I didn't know until my first real crush. Some guy in high school with a ridiculous jawline and the personality of a potato. Took me a year to figure out that the flutter in my stomach wasn't admiration. Jordan cracked a smile. Potato personality, huh? Still would have let him ruin my life back then. He laughed, then went quiet. I think I'm still figuring it out, he said, his voice quieter now. Like, I've always liked girls. I dated them, slept with them, but I waited. There's something different about this, he continued, looking at me. About how I feel around you. The air between us thickened again. I wasn't sure what to say. I didn't want to push. I also didn't want to pretend like I hadn't spent the last few years wondering what this exact moment would feel like, so I said the only honest thing I could think of. I felt that too. Jordan's jaw flexed, and he nodded slowly. I didn't know if it was just me. It's not. We stood there for a long beat, the quiet between us filled with everything we weren't saying out loud. Then, without a word, he stepped closer. This time, close enough to touch. Can I try something? He asked. I nodded before I could think too hard about it. And then his hand found mine again, just like it had the night before. But this time, it wasn't tentative. This time his fingers threaded through mine like they belonged there. His eyes searched mine, and he leaned in, slow enough that I could have stopped him if I wanted to. I didn't. Our lips met, soft, unsure, warm, and I swear everything in me short-circuited. The kiss wasn't perfect. It wasn't practiced. But it was real. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine. I have no idea what I'm doing, he whispered. Me neither, I said. But we can figure it out. He smiled. That same tired, real smile from earlier. Yeah, I'd like that. After that morning, things shifted. Not drastically, not in some rom-com montage way, but in all the small, quiet ways that actually matter. Jordan didn't leave. He said he'd figure it out tomorrow, and then tomorrow turned into the next day, and the next. I didn't ask questions. I just moved over on the couch when he crashed beside me, handed him a beer at the end of the day, cooked dinner for 2 instead of 1. We didn't talk about what we were. We didn't label anything. But we also didn't pretend like nothing had happened. Some nights we'd fall asleep apart. Some nights we didn't. And in those moments, in the dark, in the stillness, it felt like we were building something from scratch. Something fragile, but real. Something that didn't need permission. One night, we were watching a dumb sci-fi movie, Jordan's pick. He loved the genre in a way that made him talk through the entire thing, poking holes in plot lines and laughing at bad effects. I barely watched the screen. I watched him instead. He had his feet up on the coffee table, hoodie sleeves pulled down over his hands like a kid. His hair was still damp from a shower. He looked soft, tired, safe. You're staring, he said, eyes still on the screen. I smirked. I am. He turned to face me, smile flickering in the low light. Why? I shrugged. Just thinking how weird this is. A week ago you were barely a maybe. And now? Now you're very much a maybe with a toothbrush in my bathroom. He laughed, nudging my leg with his. I can take it back. Too late. You already used my toothpaste. You're officially mine now. Jordan was quiet for a second, like he was weighing something in his head. Then he said, I told my sister. My eyebrows went up. You told her about us? I didn't say us. Just that I was staying with you. That something changed. That I was confused. But it felt right. I nodded, giving him space. She didn't freak, he added. She just said, okay, be honest with yourself, don't be stupid. She sounds smart. She is. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the flicker of the TV casting blue light across his face. Then, out of nowhere, he said, I keep thinking about how easy it is with you. I looked at him. Easy? He nodded. Yeah, like I don't have to try so hard. I'm not acting. I'm not saying what people want to hear. I'm just me. And I didn't know I needed that until now. His words hit me in the chest. That kind of truth, the raw, unscripted kind, always did. Jordan, I said, voice low. You don't owe anyone a version of you that makes them comfortable, least of all me. He leaned in, his shoulder resting against mine. I know, but I want to give you the real one anyway. That night, we slept curled together in the smallest corner of the bed, limbs tangled, breath syncing up without even trying. It wasn't sexual, not that night. It was quiet intimacy, the kind that made your chest feel heavy in the best possible way. The next morning, I woke up before him. His arm was still slung across my stomach. His face relaxed, peaceful. I watched him for a few minutes, and I realized I wasn't afraid of where this was going anymore. The first time we kissed in public, it wasn't planned. It wasn't some romantic setup or a bold declaration. It just happened, almost by accident, and it left both of us rattled in the best way. We were at the corner cafe near my place, the kind with chipped mugs, mismatched furniture, and the best chai in the city. Jordan had started tagging along on my late morning coffee runs, always ordering something ridiculous and overly sweet. That day, it was a caramel mocha with extra whip. I swear you just want a milkshake, I teased, taking a sip of my own black coffee. Jordan grinned. I'm here for a good time, not a bitter one. We took our usual spot by the window, watching the rain drizzle against the glass. The cafe was quiet, just a few students hunched over laptops, a barista humming behind the counter. I got a message from Ben this morning, Jordan said suddenly, voice more serious now. My stomach tightened. Your ex? He nodded, stirring his drink absently. Just said he hoped I was okay, that he was sorry, that maybe we could talk sometime. I watched his face, trying to read the expression that hovered there. He didn't look angry, just conflicted. You gonna respond? I asked, careful not to sound jealous. Jordan hesitated. I don't think so, not yet. He looked up at me then, eyes steady. I'm not where I was, and I don't want to get pulled back into that. I nodded, unsure of what to say, but relieved all the same. And then, without really thinking, he leaned across the table and kissed me. Quick, soft, nothing flashy, just real. When he pulled back, his eyes were wide like he was only just realizing what he'd done. I could feel people around us, shifting, glancing, the usual public ripple when something unordinary happens. But I didn't care. Neither did he, apparently. We didn't talk about it. We just finished our drinks and walked home, shoulder to shoulder under a shared umbrella. Later that night, I found him standing on the tiny balcony outside my bedroom, hoodie zipped up, mug of tea in hand. You all right? I asked, stepping out beside him. He nodded. Just thinking. Dangerous, he smiled. About you, about this, about how strange it is that I feel calmer here, on this crappy little balcony, with lukewarm tea and wet socks, than I ever did in that nice apartment with Ben. I leaned against the railing beside him. Maybe it's not the tea. No, he said, it's not. He looked at me for a long second, then added, I keep waiting for the part where I freak out, where I convince myself this was a mistake. Yeah? I said softly. And has that part shown up yet? Jordan shook his head. No, that's what's scary. He set the mug down and turned to face me, hands resting lightly on my waist. I think I'm falling for you, he said. Just like that. No drama, no preamble. My breath caught. I'd thought it, I'd hoped it. But hearing him say it hit different. You're not the only one, I said. He pulled me in then, kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. The kind of kiss that makes you forget about timelines and labels and past mistakes. The kind that says, this might actually be something. By the end of that week, we'd settled into a rhythm that felt dangerously close to domestic. Jordan started leaving little things in places I hadn't expected. His hoodie on the back of my chair, his toothbrush next to mine, his charger plugged into the wall on my side of the bed. He even adjusted the settings on my coffee machine one morning like he lived there. I wanted to be annoyed, I wasn't. We cooked together, ate together, fought over dumb things like who used the last of the oat milk or who left the cap off the toothpaste. It felt easy, natural, like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. But there were still moments, flashes of hesitation, a certain distance in his eyes sometimes, like he was trying to hold something back. It came to a head one Thursday night. I was in the kitchen rinsing dishes. Jordan had just gotten off a call with his mom. Tense, quiet, short. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, staring at the floor like it had wronged him personally. "She doesn't know," he said after a beat. I looked up. "About us?" He nodded. "She asked if I was still seeing her. This girl I dated once." I lied. Said I was too busy for dating. I didn't respond right away. He looked up at me, eyes apologetic. "It's not because I'm ashamed. I'm just not ready. She's old school, conservative. She's not gonna get it." "I get it," I said, wiping my hands on a towel. Jordan took a step closer. "Do you?" "I do," I said. "But it doesn't mean it doesn't sting a little." He flinched. "I know. I'm not asking you to announce anything. Just don't hide me like I'm something to be embarrassed about." Jordan stepped in front of me then, cupping the back of my neck with his hand, his thumb brushing gently along my jaw. "You're not even close." He kissed me there in the kitchen, slow and soft, and something about the way he held me made it clear. He knew exactly what he'd been avoiding, and he was trying to fix it the only way he knew how. We didn't talk more about it that night. We just let it sit. Unresolved, but not ignored. Later, curled up on the couch, his head resting on my chest, I asked quietly, "What are we?" He tilted his face up to look at me. "I don't know. Something good?" I smiled. "That works for now." The next morning, I found a note on my laptop. "You're the first thing I've ever been scared to lose before I even had it. Glash J." It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a promise. But it was something. And maybe, for now, that was enough. The night it all finally broke open started like any other. Pizza on the coffee table. His feet in my lap. Some awful reality show playing on TV that we pretended to hate but secretly loved. He was wearing that navy blue hoodie he'd basically claimed as his own. Sleeves pushed up. A glass of wine balanced on the armrest. We were halfway through an episode when his phone buzzed. Jordan didn't move to pick it up, just stared at the screen. I caught the name, Ben. He didn't silence it, just let it ring out. When it buzzed again a minute later, I finally asked, "You want to get that?" He shook his head. "No." "Then why does it look like you're holding your breath?" He exhaled slowly, eyes still locked on the phone. "Because I'm trying not to blow everything up." I shifted under his legs. "Jordan, he texted me again this morning. He said he made a mistake, that he still thinks about me, that maybe we should meet up just to talk." "Do you want to?" I asked, trying to sound casual. His silence was louder than any answer. "I don't know," he finally said. "Part of me wants closure. The other part just wants to not feel confused anymore." That hit harder than I expected. I stood, pacing toward the kitchen. "You feel confused right now?" He sat up. "No, yes, but not because of you. Because this is real. Because this, whatever we are, it's not some rebound hookup. It actually matters." I turned, hands braced on the counter. "So you're thinking about going back to him?" "I'm not thinking about anything clearly," he said. "That's the problem." "Then figure it out," I snapped, "because I can't be the guy you use to work through your identity crisis while you keep one foot in the past." He stood too, hands out like he was trying to calm a fire. "I'm not using you, but you're not choosing me either," I said, quieter now. "And maybe that's the same thing." He didn't respond. The room felt small suddenly, suffocating. After a long silence, he grabbed his keys. "I just need to clear my head," he muttered. I didn't stop him. The door closed behind him with a soft click. I stood there alone, staring at the empty wine glass he left behind, wondering if this was it. If that brief, strange, beautiful, almost relationship had just dissolved in my living room. I didn't hear from him for hours. No text, no call. By midnight, I gave up waiting and went to bed. I lay there, wide awake, playing back every moment of the last 2 weeks like a broken movie reel. Every glance, every laugh, every kiss. And just when I was about to fall asleep, the front door opened. Footsteps, quiet, slow. Then a shadow in the doorway. Jordan, his hoodie soaked from rain, eyes red-rimmed like he'd been crying. He didn't speak. Just walked over to the bed and sat down on the edge, his back to me. I drove around for hours, he said. I went to the park, the old coffee shop, even that bookstore you love. Just kept thinking. I sat up. And? He turned to face me, eyes raw. And every place I went felt wrong without you in it. My throat tightened. I'm not calling him back, he said. I'm not meeting him. I'm not looking backward anymore. He crawled under the blanket, closer than he'd ever been, his forehead against mine. I choose this, he whispered. I choose you. The next morning felt different, not in a huge, cinematic way, but in the quiet, unmistakable way that you just know something's changed. Jordan was still asleep, curled toward me with one hand resting lightly on my chest. The rain had stopped. The city outside was slow and gray, but peaceful. For the first time in a long time, my apartment felt like home. I watched him sleep for a while. I wasn't even trying to be sappy. He just looked peaceful. No walls up. No performance. Just Jordan, breathing slow, mouth slightly open, hoodie twisted at his waist. I brushed a strand of hair off his forehead, and his eyes blinked open. Creeping on me while I sleep? He mumbled, voice scratchy. Shamelessly. He smiled, eyes half closed. Last night wasn't a dream, right? Nope. He sighed into the pillow. Good. I was worried I'd have to run off again and make a grand speech. Please don't, I said. I hate speeches. We stayed in bed way too long, trading dumb jokes, scrolling our phones, pretending we didn't have jobs or responsibilities. Around noon, he got a call from his sister again. This time, he answered it on speaker. When she asked where he was, he looked at me, smirked, and said, Still at my boyfriend's place. Boyfriend. He said it so casually, like it was just a fact now. And somehow, it was. Later that week, we went to dinner with some mutual friends. Nothing fancy, just burgers and beers at a loud pub downtown. It was the first time Jordan held my hand in public without flinching. No hesitation. No nerves. Just his fingers tangled in mine, resting on his thigh under the table. At one point, one of our friends asked, only half joking, how long we'd been a thing. Jordan answered before I could. A while, he said. We just hadn't figured it out yet. That night, back at my place, we lay on the couch in a pile of limbs and leftover fries. His head was in my lap, my fingers running lazily through his hair. You know, I said, I still don't know exactly what this is. He looked up at me, smirking. You want to define it now? Not really. I kind of like the ambiguity. Jordan sat up a little, resting on his elbow. Okay then, he said. Here's my definition. He leaned in, kissed me slowly, then whispered, It's real. That's all it has to be. And, maybe, he was right. It didn't need a label, or a deadline, or some clean, rehearsed explanation. It was real. Messy and slow and completely unexpected, but real. And for the first time in a long time, that was more than enough.